to say, to see them on the big screen. It really does them justice. So thanks for doing this, making the movie. Why did you and Lo decide to make this movie?
I think it's because I've never worked with a band for that long, and there seemed to be a theme that was going on. And after about the third video, I started by, we did a black and white one, then sort of a red one with the red balloons, then a blue one. And I thought, let's just keep going, and then I did a yellow one and another blue one in different colors, and I thought maybe someday we could put this all together. And about 3 years ago, I started the idea of compiling everything, and I started getting into the archives of 16mm films and discovering things that we never finished or outtakes. And so I thought I'd finish it then, but then they put out another record, and so I did another video. Well, we better hold off, and this year they put out yet another record. So it fell with the 20-year anniversary, so we thought, hey, we better finish this thing.
Yeah, and you did use a lot of archive, but you put it together so seamlessly, so smoothly. I couldn't really tell what was like a complete music video or what was just a little excerpt from an archive, because it just really went together beautifully. Can you talk a bit about the editing process, or how much material you had to work with?
Well, we have a ton of material. I mean, I've got so many 16mm reels and reels and reels. Some of it couldn't be found, some of the outtakes, but for the most part we had everything. And even the shorts, they were kind of part of Lo. Sometimes I'd ask them, could I use your music to make a short? I'm just messing around with films. And it just felt like it was, I don't know, just an experiment. Like, I like the fact that most of it's 16mm, and it'll probably be the last 16mm film I ever make. And I try to keep shooting 16mm even when digital took over, just to make it part of this film. And then the process was just fun. My editor, Jolene Garnes, who, she didn't edit the first three because she was like a kid then, but her first free job she did for me, she was a student of mine, I taught at a college, and she edited Canada. And then she started editing everything after that with all of my music videos. So I gave her the challenge, hey, you know, she was a big fan of the early stuff. I'll send you the raw footage, you recut it. And then she goes, wow, cool. And then I had other students recut her stuff. And everybody was working for free, so, you know, students are great for that kind of thing. And they're very eager, and I'm very glad that they helped out.
I'm imagining your apartment with boxes and boxes of film under the bed and in closets. And you've done a lot of work with other bands too. You're not exclusive to Lo, of course. Do you have like just tons and tons of footage from Lo and other bands as well?
It's actually in my garage, and my former producer, still a friend of mine, Rick Fuller, who archived everything. We have a ton of old stuff from the 80s and 90s, but as we got into the major labels, they demanded all the footage back. But with Lo, since they were independent, they'd call up, hey, we got a few $100, you want to make a music video? And I just got off like a massive job, and I'm like, yes, I do. And so the nice thing about it is we got to keep the negatives.
So how did you first meet the band?
Vernon Yard, their first label, David Levine, he called me because they didn't know anybody in Minnesota that lived near Lo. They're from Duluth. And I was the only music video director up there, so I think they said, well, maybe go up to Duluth and make their video. I heard their song, just one song, and it was like, right at the end of the Nirvana, well, Nirvana was still happening. We didn't know it was the end yet. But it was that grunge rock thing, Sub Pop. And I made a lot of Sub Pop videos, and I got this one song, Words, which was the first video on the lake. Not first in the film, but the first one we made. And I thought, wow, this is so quiet. It's almost the opposite of the super loud, crazy grunge, Sub Pop insanity in the earlier Minneapolis stuff. And it almost was more powerful. And grunge and all that stuff was getting a little trendy by this point anyway. And when you went to the first Low show, people would be like, shh. And you say, hey, you want to go get, shh, go get me a beer. You know? And it was incredible because it slowly started to build power. And so I was thinking, how could I make a video to that? And I wrote a bunch of ideas, and they're like, no, we don't like any of that. Pure minimalism is what they wanted. And they said, how about if we just push a boat around on the ice? And I'm like, okay. You know your music better than I do. It's a good idea. And so we shot that. I tried some really whack experimental film, and it got all fucked up and scratched, and the camera was freezing up, and everything went wrong. But it turned out to look really weird and odd, and it kind of defined them. And I finally was like, wow, you know, I'm a better DP than I ever was. DP, director of photography. I used to shoot all my own videos, but it was because of the music. And I realized, what was that one film where there was a piece of trash blowing around? Remember that? I don't know. Yeah, yeah. It was just blowing around. And I would look at that, and I'd turn on a Low song, and I'm like, that's beautiful. And you could look at almost anything that's really minimal with Low music, and it was really beautiful. And I'm like, wow, they did me a good favor with their music. Very cinematic music. So I tried to maintain that cinematic thing after that first video, not knowing I'd make more than 1, 2, 3, and so on. But then they turned way up, and they got political. And I remember one of the very few times that Alan ever spoke was about 2005, and we were in a car, and I'm like, this record, The Great Destroyer, actually sounds a little political. You guys have always been so, you always avoided anything political, even though it felt like it was right there. And he's like, yeah, you know, with all this stuff going on, sometimes you just can't keep quiet about it anymore. And so they turned up, and I made the images more violent, tried to relate to, I think, what they were talking about. But I never knew what they were really wanting, because they never said. They just like, okay. And then I'd finish the video, I'd send it to them, and they'd be like, yeah, okay, I got it. I'm like, I hope you liked it.
Well, they must have, because you're still with them after 20 years. I think there's some connection. You relate to their music. So, great. Let's see who has questions out in the audience.